Hello and welcome back to Raise Gaming and more Nightreign. Today we're talking about advanced tips that you might not still be doing at this point. Pretty much just a fast list of some of the most impactful things that I use on most runs that I can. So let's just blast them off. There are a lot of hidden chests on the map. Here's a bunch of them. There are two kinds of forts. There's the kind of familiar fort height, and then there's one that's a lot higher up that usually has a crystallian or like one of the archer golems. In the high up one then, right where you would fight the crystallian and then say one of the casters, there's kind of a broken pillar, which you can climb up here and yeah, there's a bigger chest there. That combined with the one that's halfway up in its own little gated room, means there's actually two large chests here for 2 chances of a stone sword key, as well as other good drops. But the normal fort height actually has 2 as well. So you've got the usual one up high where you might fight a knight, but as you turn around from that chest, instead of turning left to go into the tower, you turn right and climb this little structure here. Up here on top is that extra chest. So there's 2 large chests in both fort types. When it comes to the castle, there's absolutely tons of them. There's the 1 large one and 2 normals in the courtyard on the ground floor. But just on the platform above that where you could drop down, there's going to be another large chest there, near the center room. But there's actually 3 large chests hidden up in a tower on the southern eastern point of the castle, overlooking the river that cuts through. The easiest way to get there is to jump over the bridge gap, over the river, turn right, and then you can either climb the wall or use the broken rubble itself to climb up that way instead. Up here then are 3 of these large chests, so it's a lot of extra drops, purples, higher end consumables. Don't walk past this. There are other kinds of large chests you can find though. The treasure chests. These will be marked on your map if you have a relic that reveals the treasure chests, and a lot of us are doing that with that meta relic. This is their special icon, and they're often hidden in plain sight. Just bigger chests inside of grass, under a bridge, at the bottom of a spring, that kind of thing. And if they're marked on the map and you're near them, just go pick them up. They're basically always purples of some kind and higher tier consumables. But you can actually find these kind of treasure chests in unexpected places. Like, you know, the caravans that would normally be pulled around normal Elden Ring. Sometimes you get broken down camps that have those. And there's always at least one of these larger caravans standing up that has one of these large chests in the back. Same rewards as a treasure chest. Finally, for hidden chests, there's also the ruins that have the illusion staircases. There are 2 kinds of illusion staircases. There's one where it's up on the higher level, just kind of dead center. And there's another kind for a different ruins layout, where it's on the lower level on the outer edge. The tell for this is an open floor with bricks that make a kind of rectangle shape where that stairwell is being hidden. Just attack it or roll on it, that reveals it, and inside you'll find 2 large chests every time. This greatly enhances the loot of our ruins and makes them much more valuable. Now a bunch of movement skips, starting with the classic, the castle. Approaching from the west side, you've got the broken wall which you can run up, and then you can sort of jump up onto the lip that lines the whole castle, letting you go around it in different ways. But if you head around to the north side, you can quickly find yourself climbing up into the castle, basically at the top plateau where the grand or big boss on top of the castle resides, letting you get up there super quick without dealing with enemies. You can do a similar kind of trick in the mountaintops. As you're approaching through the normal path, going up the first spring, climbing up the first sort of gravestone wall, you'll be ambushed by the large dragon. Ignoring it and heading north, going to the wall here, you can just kind of Skyrim run up the side of the wall here, climbing up, veering up and to the left the whole way until you reach the top. This lets you reach the mountaintop power unbelievably quick. For the Volcano Skip, it's pretty simple. You just head to the northern side. You can even use, say, the bird to get you over there. And like this player does in this footage, you just drop down to the platform below. Anyone can do it. It's super simple. This gets you straight to the first fog wall and mini boss and gets you to the bottom a lot quicker. For the Nokla Skip, you're going to need either a raider or wylder. Raider will get the team there though, so it's obviously better. When approaching Nokla from the northwestern side, there's basically a higher up area where the terrain naturally lets you get quite close to the wall. If you slam a totem down here from the raider's ultimate, you can all stand on top of it and sprint jump to the wall and climb up and across. This skips a massive section of the city, getting you in a lot quicker. The alternative is the selfish wylder play, where you just do a claw shot leap at the edge, making the distance in the same way without the totem. Finally, we have the rotten forest location. There is a possible 3 locations where the power can be, basically in one of those mushroom trees. So you can go to the fort and reveal where it is, or you can just go to any one of the 3 locations and maybe get lucky going there first, as shown on this image. Now, a variety of tips and tricks. The Hippo boss is one of the easiest sources of dormant powers and runes. It's just like one of the easiest bosses in the game. one guaranteed spawns in the center of the map if you have Nokla the city. This is because there will be no castle on the map on that version. So you just head down the river there and you will always find the hippo, who is super easy to kill and well worth it. If you find a Crimsonwhorl bubble tier, you can do the simple healing trick to ignore dangerous mechanics of a boss. This is best shown against the hard mode Adele, where it leaps up into the air and slams down with a lightning pillar and spawns a storm. When you consume a Crimsonwhorl bubble tier, you get 15 seconds of healing. Every instance of damage you take restores 5% of your max health instead. So against ticking damage attacks from various Nightlords, you can completely mitigate and heal through them. This means for some of the longer animations, like that hard mode Adele super, you can be at the landing location, ignoring the damage, and getting free DPS while it recovers from its own attack. Crimsonwhorl bubble tier will be offered in many cases by the merchant before the Nightlord, but you can get it during a run. Be aware you can land multiple critical attacks at the same time, if multiple players trigger the crit at the same time. This requires a bit of luck and lag, to be honest, but it is possible and I've done it many times. This means you get to double the critical damage you're dealing per critical, and it's hard to do, to be honest, but sometimes it just works out, sometimes it doesn't. Ultimately, it's worth trying if you ever can. If you're communicating with your friends, just say, hang on, don't do the critical, I'm almost there, and then you try to time it. Be aware that fall damage kills enemies, if not us. So if you're on the castle, you can literally push enemies off the castle walls, killing them much quicker, with knockbacks or backstabs or whatever. But it also works against enemy bosses. Flying dragons and magma worms are the most obvious cases, because they sort of clip into a wall and slide up it, only to then fall down and die instantly. So if you're dealing with one of those bigger enemies in the open world, try to move so you press them into a wall, and it might just kill them. There are actually two kinds of sprinting. Surge sprinting, which is what we're all doing by pressing the left stick in, which consumes a ton of stamina, or normal sprinting, where you hold circle or B on a controller, which consumes a lot less stamina, but obviously moves half as fast. The tip here is to be aware that surge sprinting will cleave out your stamina when you're in the middle of a fight. So in a Nightlord fight where they move around a lot and you're surge sprinting around, you end up running out of stamina when you need to actually dodge now. So just use normal sprinting a little bit here and there, guys. It means you'll run out of stamina in the moment you need it, a lot less. Tanking the blue is still a thing in the game for whatever reason. You can tank up to almost 2 minutes before the damage will double, but when you die, there's no cost, because as long as you can get back to your lost runes before dying again, you never actually lose anything. The best case use of this is at the end of Night 2. Before going up to the Nightlord, have a look. Is there a wandering boss nearby you could run over and kill? Is there a location where you can get an extra dormant power? A church where you can get an extra flask before you go up? As long as there's nothing too close to the final circle location, it won't despawn. And so you can extend the final night as long as you want. Enemies are weak to the same things they are weak to in Elden Ring. So a great example of this would be Crystarians. They're extremely weak to blunt or strike damage. And so you can do a lot more damage to them by using your shield as a weapon if you have one of those, or any blunt damage. It does a lot more than trying to hit them with a sword or something where you bounce off them and do no damage. This also works the same for the miners in the mine, by the way. So just in general, try to think about what enemy you're facing. Did it have a classic weakness in Elden Ring? It'll have the same weakness. This is greatly shown with the revenants with a classic heal incantation doing a burst of damage to them. So if you played Elden Ring, remember that. For bow users, like of course ironeye, you can aim by two-handing the bow and then holding L1 on a controller. This allows you to aim and take specific aim shots. Often, firing at enemy weak points like heads will cause a special burst of damage and a mini-stun, which can help your team or just yourself. Also, when you're aiming, you're auto slow walking, triggering those slow walking passives. Also, weapon buffs apply to bows, and then that applies to the arrows. This then allows you to deal ranged fire, bleed, black fire dot, on other options from ranged. So if you find a blood flame incantation on a seal, this will give you ranged bleed. If you find a black flame blade incantation on a seal, this gives you a ranged dot. This works for other armament buffs like poison armament, holy armament, and so on. So be checking seals if you're playing ironeye. Here's a fun fact. Dexterity actually scales how fast you cast spells. So the fastest caster of spells and incantations in the game is Executor, because he has S scaling dex. But for a realistic tip here, this works amazing for Duchess, who actually spell casts for a purpose right, but has good dexterity scaling at the same time to cast quickly. If you haven't seen all the crazy kill clips, Duchess with Carrion Slicer is an instant monster build because she casts it super quick and scales with intelligence decently. Arguably, the best thing you can do as Duchess is have a dagger and a staff that has Carrion Slicer that you weave between. Let's now talk percents and impactful relics. Obviously, the ever jailed damage increase relic line is nuts. If you don't know the specific stats, it increases damage, all damage, meaning casting spells works too, by 1.05. It's a 5% damage increase per jail boss you kill with that relic line. Be aware there's a different relic line that's better immediately though. Taking attacks improves attack power. You get a 10-second buff after taking damage to deal 15% more damage by comparison. 3 times more. To beat that then, you need to have at least cleared 3 jails within a run. But obviously the jail damage buff is permanent and doesn't require you to get hit first. But you know, for characters that will trade, like Raider maybe, it is something you should consider as a great relic line. Taking attacks improved attack power. For other interesting stat bonuses then, you've got max FP permanent increase after sorcery rise clears. This is actually an 18% increase FP per rise, which is why it scales so well. And there's an attack power one that's actually better than the Everjail one, just less reliable. As you get attack power up after defeating a Night Invader, that's a 7% attack power bonus per invader you kill. So 2% better than the Jail Relic. The problem here is Night Invaders means the NPC invaders you find in the Cataclysm events that show up in different locations such as ruins or grand cathedrals sometimes. That means you'll see one on the map if you're lucky. And at that location, maybe you'll have 1, maybe 2 invaders at all. And so while it's more impactful, there's less stacking potential and a lot more RNG if you'll even see one. Lastly, I want to talk about improved initial standard attack. This increases the damage for your first light attack by 13% as a multiplier. And it stacks. So you could have 3 relics with that line on it and it would stack immensely. It would be devastating for your output and is the concept for a popular build. We talked about this recently. It works on one-handed attacks, two-handed attacks. It just has to be the first light attack. A raider with a big colossal weapon then, maybe a two-handed build would be good. But be aware it doesn't work on jump attacks. However, this also works great for Ironeye, who's basically a light attack spamming character anyway when using the bow. But you do need to fire the first shot, not the combo. So each time you fire your shots, you pause for a moment, then fire again. Then you always get that first initial attack and the damage bonus. As Cotton found, you could also use the trick to use 2 different weapons in both hands, and then swap between L1 and R1 for the initial attack on every hit. This also works for Ironeye though. Holding 2 different bows in each hand, doing L1 and R1 for each initial attack is another option. So give it a try. But yeah, there's just a bunch of the most impactful tips that I feel like would be universally useful. I hope this condensed list was useful to you and you learned something new. If you guys have anything like this kind of topics or extra information on what we talked about today, then let us know in the comments. You might just help someone. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.